about the Mashiach's coming, the redemption is something, oh, God kept us in a box for so long. In exile, the exile itself had its times, fluctuations, harder times, less harder times. The common denominator, it's one big goal spiritually, different physically. The Am Yisrael in the last 2,000 years had quite a tough time in so many different ways, so many different. Even they had a little better physically than there was their spiritual state many times the other way around. Then Hashem decides to bring redemption. Hashem decides to bring Mashiach. So one would suggest they call it Jack out of the box. Actually, the box is closed, and you think there's nothing happening. You pull open the box, and some fun starts. And that's why one would receive Mashiach. Hashem decides, going to push the button. Mashiach is going to come. Redemption is going to come to the world. So it's going to come from a state of exile into the messianic state just by Hashem's pushing that one button, and all of a sudden the good stuff starts happening. Does it take from one day to the next? It's irrelevant. Even if it takes a week or two, but it's a kind of a quick development, and the connection between exile and Mashiach is just an extrinsic connection. This led into that, but did not necessarily, we would think, one would perhaps think that there's no intrinsic connection between the time of exile to the time of redemption. It comes down to that in these very few days, and culminating today, it says there's a direct connection. It's not two separate, it's of course two separate periods, the period of exile to the period of redemption. We saw it in the Pesach story, of course. Am Yisrael was under the bondage of the tyrant Pharaoh and the Egyptians, which were extremely mean to them, and eventually they were free people. Of course, it's two different times, two different epochs, and two different experiences. But nonetheless, when it comes to the final redemption, it is directly connected to the service and to the investment of Am Yisrael throughout the entire time of exile, throughout the entire time from the very beginning when we were at the inception of Am Yisrael as a nation. Meaning to say, so the Rebbe is saying basically that at the end of the day we know from God's glasses it's a redeemed world, because He created the world. And He created the world not only in the 6 days of creation, He's constantly creating the world. So from His perspective, everything is God and godly. It means to say everything is already redeemed, everything is messianic. The problem is from our side of the veil. From our side of the veil, not necessarily we see God in every step of the gate. And we ask ourselves, well, if God is the creator of the world, there's no one else who's giving this world energy, so why don't we see that God in reality? The answer is that's the darkness, the opacity of God's. The things are for real, but we cannot see with our own eyes. So what do we do about it? We have to elevate, sublimate the world on its own, not only from God's perspective and God's lenses, but the world on its own should be able to experience its own true, essential, inherent reality, which is God. How do we do that? Okay, so this is what Hashem gave Am Yisrael the Torah. And when we do it, we notice that the difference of, you say difference in our religion, other religions, it's a wrong statement, because from our perspective, there's only one Yiddishkeit, of course, which 4 million were able to witness together unanimously the Mount Sinai experience. But from the perspective of our Yiddishkeit, we see something very distinct from what Torah demands, that when other people perceive what it means to be spiritual. The average person says, you're spiritual? Go up to a mountain, meditate, contemplate under the God in reality for 5-6 hours, play with some sand if I really want to get spiritual, and then I'll come off the mountain and I'll have a better week, a elevated spiritual week. From Hashem's perspective and the Torah perspective, being spiritual has nothing to do with climbing a mountain, meditating. It's nothing to do with becoming closer to God. The way God says, you want to come closer to me, I'm going to give you my rules. My rules is, do a mitzvah, and you see the most significant majority of our Torah, of course there's going to be a prayer and meditation exists in our Torah, but the significant majority of our service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is dealing with the physical. If you tell what a pair of tefillin is, the tefillin, the parchment comes from an animal, if you think about it. Even the holy secretary that we all stand up and what's the parchment? It's coming from the skin of an animal, the ink from a tree. And so it is with the significant majority of our mitzvahs. If it's the lulav and esrog, if it's the mezuzah, our tzitzis comes from the wool of the sheep. And Hashem says, this is the punchline, this is the objective, this is the goal. That you should take matters of this very physical world, make a bracha with them, elevate them, sublimate them, and connect to me with them. Not divorce the world from your connection to me, to God, but bring the world into the fold. And when we do this day after day, we put our skills every day, we put on tzitzis, and we keep Shabbos, and do all the things. What we're doing is, we're taking off another layer of this very physical. In other words, the way the world looks with its the state of opacity, as we used the term before, means say from its level of darkness, the world does not demonstrate the oneness of God on its own, and we take away those strip the layers till we come to the core essence of this world. What is the core essence of this world? Of course, it's the godly reality. But the godly reality is covered. So when we do a mitzvah time and again, and we exercise matters in ourselves, and matters of the very physical world, and with every mitzvah we do, what we're doing is we're introducing the true inherent godly reality which is in every fiber of creation. That's where we see the connection of Mashiach's coming. To the 2,000 years we were in exile. It's not the jack out of the box from one second to the other. We are the ones who are doing it, says the Alter Rebbe. Every mitzvah you do, you're bringing a certain redemptive energy to that skin of that animal because you used it, utilized it into doing it, to putting on tefillin. You brought in godliness, you brought in the Mashiach, and particularly redeemed the state into that wool when you put on the tzitzis. And you did so when you ate the matzah. The matzah is also flour and water. It's a cracker. You can buy crackers in the store and you don't see the correlation, the connection with the godly reality, but you took the flour and you took the water. Or you brought on the altar as one of the services when we had the Beis Hamikdash. That's what we did then. Today, for example, we eat the matzah. We're saying, God, this matzah is not just wool, flour and water, which belongs to the default of this world, a world that does not demonstrate the one Hashem. I'm going to make sure that this matzah is going to demonstrate the one Hashem. It's going to become part of my Seder table. I'm going to make a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, and then achilas matzah and eating matzah. Oh, now the matzah is revealing, you're revealing the godly reality of this matzah. Now, he says even more than that. Not only when it's directly with mitzvah. What about you ate lunch today? So of course you made a bracha, so you again elevated the physical sandwich that you ate. You made it after bracha, of course you did that as well. But even the sandwich itself, unlike the matzah, is not a mitzvah itself. The matzah is a mitzvah. The sandwich is not particularly a mitzvah to eat that sandwich. But the Rebbe says, what do you do with the energy of that sandwich? You had kaya, right? You ate the sandwich, so you're able to learn Torah. You're able to do a kind of deed. Even if you were doing, you had the energy to go into the next meeting, to make a few dollars, to educate your children with those few dollars, to give a bit of charity, to give a little bit to the shul, to buy a nice mezuzah, to buy your matzah. So retroactively, that sandwich that you ate, in the end of the day, also has a purpose, a godly purpose. Also, you're introducing a godly reality, even on its own. It's not an inherent mitzvah because it's leading to something good. Of course, it has to be kosher, because if it's not kosher, you cannot elevate something which God says it's tied down to the world of impurity. Of course, we don't argue with God. God says we're not supposed to eat that, so we don't. But something which is kosher, we think it's neutral, except it's not neutral. Because you're going to do something good, you're going to eat that, as an example, in the context of eating, you're going to feel better, and with that energy, you're going to learn Torah, or you're going to make money, and you're going to do good stuff with the money. So all the way back to that tomato, that cucumber, and it becomes, you're introducing again a very stark godly reality into that cucumber. And you do it, and I do it, and we do it this year, last year, 5 years ago, 2,000 years, Am Yisrael is executing this practice. In the end of the day, of course, Mashiach is going to burst out of the seams because we are the ones who are introducing the godly reality into the world for so many years. So what's going to happen? Consequently, we're going to feel the world is going to, like we say, that the godly reality is going to be present not only through God's lenses, but the world on its own will call upon the oneness of HaKadosh, the oneness of Hashem. And the Pasuk says something interesting, but that might be a moment when the Pasuk says something interesting. And when Mashiach is going to come, it says, Ki ayin bi ayin niru, the physical eye will be able to see godliness. It says more so, V'ro kol basar yachdu, the flesh will be able to experience God. And the question is really, my flesh appreciates, like we say, a sandwich. My eyes appreciate maybe whatever, even something which is not prohibited, but just a nice sightseeing or something. My eyes really connect to the physical. My flesh, of course, connects only to the physical. But the Alter Rebbe says it's not going to be a guessing game of Mashiach is going to come, because it's only coming from the perspective of our neshama. That when I go into synagogue, I could have a godly sensation. I could feel the godly presence. I could see the world from God's lenses. But if it's only in shul, which means with my spiritual senses, that doesn't mean that the world is permeated with the godly reality indefinitely. So the verse says, Mashiach's coming is a totally different idea. Because over all the years, we always were able to feel some godliness here. It was a good learning session, a good davening session, Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah, people coming together. Of course, we're always able to tap into the truth, but that doesn't mean that the world is is full, like the pasuk says, that the whole physical land is full with the knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we know Mashiach is going to come, Mashiach's coming is that it's not exactly a guessing game, or when I walk into the shul. My physical eye, wherever I am, I'm on Fifth Avenue, or I'm in Timbuktu, wherever I am, my physical eye is always able to identify the divine providence. And so to my flesh, meaning to say the most core, inferior dimensions of me as a human being is also able to experience. In the shul, out of the shul, of course the shul is a place where we warm ourselves up to get the extra dosage of warmth. Of course, we join a shir, we learn Torah, but when Mashiach is going to come, the entire, that's what we say, in Aleinu B'Haya Hashem L'Melech Kol Ha'aretz. Kol Ha'aretz means say not only the Kol, the yeshiva is going to experience God, the entire world will experience God. And therefore, the pasuk says, my physical eye will see God, my physical flesh will be able to identify with the God reality, because Umala, you say, the verse says Umala means it's full. You take a cup, then you say it's half full, 3/4 full, then you say it's full to the top and overpouring. Mashiach is going to come, the pasuk says, Umala, right? The verse in Isaiah, Umala Oretz, that the land is going to be full with the knowledge of God. So wherever we'll go, we will see it, and we will be the great ones who would celebrate it, us in this generation, individually and collectively, and of course all Jews of all generations, because we were the ones who made it happen. It didn't happen on its own. We did mitzvahs, we learned Torah, we ate for the godly purpose. We did things we were supposed to be, even as good human beings. But because we were good human beings, not necessarily the scholarly, every person has the ability to do what he has to do, to uncover more and more layers, to bring that state of Mashiach. So the lesson which we take, of course, today is, because Al Rebbe tells us, you don't have to be the scholarly, you don't have to be the great Rav, the great rabbi, the great tzaddik, the Moses, the Abraham. You call yourself a simple Jew. You ate today with a sandwich. You made a bracha before. You made a bracha after. You have no idea what you've done. It's explosive. It's like, how big is the atom bomb? It's tiny, but of course, to the negative, it damaged cities and in such a space that it damaged, we can never even imagine something so small has such a negative impact. Imagine a godly impact, the godly reality, the godly energy. It's truly infinite. You introduced infinity when you made the bracha on that sandwich. You made before and after, and what did you do with the energy of the sandwich? Even you went to make money. But because your whole goal is to bring more positivism to yourself, to your family, to society, you brought the Mashiach, microcosmic Mashiach into your life. So therefore we have to know that it's really dependent, each one of us, to do things right, even without becoming this great Moses. How we are, of course, we come to shul, we daven, because davening is also a way that we are able, you ready? Other than a way to express our direct godly connection, but we don't only connect it to our davening, but every part of the 24 hours has to be messianic, has to be elevated, has to be sublimated, and we have the ability to do so.
You want to say Kaddish?
Sure.
Yeah?
We're safe.
Yeah.